Before you swipe away, stay for a second, because this may explain the one bond you still cannot fully release. Not the easy one, not the one that looked good from the outside. I mean the one that reached deep inside you and changed something you cannot get back. Some people come into your life and leave behind only a memory. You place it in the past. You move on. But some people arrive like a turning point. They wake up a part of you that had been sleeping for years, and after that, nothing feels quite ordinary again. Call it timing. Call it fate. Call it a lesson. Use any word you want. Your heart still knows this was never small. It was never empty. And if you have been trying to move forward while something in you keeps quietly turning back, then keep listening, because this part matters. There are moments when someone appears, and the idea of pure chance feels too weak to explain it. You look back. You try to connect the pieces. You try to make it neat, logical, clean. But deep down, you already know logic was never fully in control here. This person did not simply walk into your world. They came with meaning. They came with weight. They came with a purpose your mind may still be trying to understand. When they entered your life, something shifted in a quiet but lasting way. It did not need drama to be powerful. It did not need perfect words to prove what it was. You felt it in your body, in your thoughts, in the way your inner world began changing after meeting them. And even now, while you try to tell yourself it is done, there is still a pull you cannot fully ignore. Not panic, not obsession, something deeper, something strangely familiar, something steady that keeps bringing your attention back. Important things do not always arrive when life is calm. Very often they appear when something inside you is finally ready to see what it kept avoiding. Maybe that is why this message found you now. Maybe some quiet part of you is waking up and noticing what it once pushed aside. There is a silent knowing in you that refuses to stay quiet, no matter how hard you try to think your way past it. That is what matters. Passing feelings fade. False stories fall apart. But what is real has a way of returning until it is seen clearly. So if this feels close to home, stay with me, because the next part may explain why this connection still lives inside you. You may feel divided right now. One part of you wants peace. It wants to let go, protect your heart, and keep moving without looking back. Another part of you cannot deny what was felt, what was opened, and what still feels unfinished. You go through your days acting normal, while your heart carries a question your mind still cannot settle. Maybe you even ask yourself if you imagined it, or if you gave too much meaning to something that was never that deep. But if it were only fantasy, time would have worn it down by now. Distance would have softened it. Silence would have ended it. Yet something is still there. Not only there, but alive in quiet and unexpected ways. That is what makes it hard to dismiss. This connection did not stay alive because your mind wanted a story. It stayed because it touched a place in you that knows truth before words can explain it. And truth is rarely loud. It does not shout. It waits. It rises in stillness. It returns in dreams. It appears in sudden feeling. It comes back through memories that hit your chest before your thoughts can catch up. Some connections are not here just to stir your emotions for a season. They are here to shift something in you. They open doors inside you that do not close easily, no matter how much time passes or how far life moves on. Once that kind of door opens, life does not go back to the way it was before. That is why what you feel is not simple craving. It is not just attachment. Obsession is loud. It pushes. It demands an answer now. But what you may be feeling is quieter, deeper, and more honest than that. It moves under the surface. It stays in the background of your day. It returns when everything becomes still enough for you to hear yourself again. That kind of feeling often comes from something that touched your deeper self, not just passing desire. And here is something many people do not understand. Silence from the other person does not always mean there was no feeling. Sometimes it means the feeling was so strong they did not know what to do with it. Some people carry deep emotion behind calm behavior. Some pull away not because they feel nothing, but because they feel too much and do not know how to stay steady in it. Their distance may not be lack of care. It may be fear, fear of being seen, fear of being vulnerable, fear of losing the emotional walls they built long before you arrived. This is where strong bonds often become complicated. One person opens faster. One person speaks more honestly sooner. The other feels exposed and steps back, because the mirror in front of them shows something they are not yet ready to face. Listen closely, because this is where many people misunderstand the whole story. You may have become that mirror. You may have touched the very part of them they usually hide from the world. And that does not simply disappear because someone avoids it. Once something real is awakened, it keeps working under the surface, quietly, constantly. It does not vanish. It does not reset. It continues shaping thoughts, reactions, and choices in ways that are not always easy to see. What they have not healed within themselves may still be guiding how they act now. People call it confusion, mixed signals, bad timing, fate, but very often it is unresolved fear wearing different clothes. A person can care deeply and still run from what that care asks of them. They can feel something true and still delay it. They can miss what is right in front of them because they are not ready to live with that level of emotional honesty. But once something inside them has truly been awakened, it does not go back to sleep easily. You may have entered their life to remind them what emotional truth feels like, and once a place like that has been touched, it remembers. Real encounters are never useless. If this connection meant nothing, it would have ended cleanly. It would not keep echoing through memories, small moments, and strange reminders that still feel alive. That does not mean you are meant to force anything. It only means there may still be movement happening that you cannot see yet. There is a big difference between breaking a locked door down and understanding that some doors open when the right moment comes. This is the part many people rush past. They think hope is weakness, but calm hope is not weakness. Sometimes it is intuition in a softer form, and if your heart feels more steady than panicked when you think about this person, pay attention to that. Calm often carries truth more clearly than fear does, but at the same time, this path is not asking you to stay stuck. It is asking you to grow into something stronger and more grounded within yourself. That is the deeper purpose here, and the next part is where everything starts to turn. Since this connection entered your life, you may have noticed that something in you has changed. You are no longer satisfied with what once seemed enough. Shallow attention feels hollow now. Half-hearted love stands out immediately. Mixed energy that you used to excuse now feels draining. That shift matters. Sometimes a bond does not come into your life to stay right away. Sometimes it comes to wake you up, to show you what you are capable of feeling, and to reveal what no longer fits the person you are becoming. That is why letting go feels so complicated, because you are not only trying to release a person, you are also trying to understand the version of yourself that was born through that experience. Through this bond, you learned how deeply you can feel. You learned your heart can hold real presence, real devotion, and real emotional depth. You learned that intensity is not always the same as truth. And once you learn that, you cannot easily return to accepting empty connection as enough. The real change begins when you stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What is this teaching me about who I am?" That is when pain begins turning into understanding. That is when confusion begins turning into direction. And that is when the connection stops being only about another person and starts becoming a path back to your own center. These kinds of bonds rarely move in a straight line. They circle back, they repeat patterns, but each time they ask for more awareness, more honesty, and more emotional maturity than before. What makes it painful is not always lack of feeling, Often, it is a difference in timing. One person is ready to open, the other is still wrapped in old fear, old habits, old protection. That is why unresolved connections do not simply disappear. They stay under the noise of daily life. They rise when distraction fades. They grow louder in silence. They return when the heart can no longer avoid itself. There are moments when you become a quiet reference point in someone's mind, even if they never admit it. Maybe that is why certain signs feel stronger lately, not to trap you in longing, but to keep you steady while you learn the difference between attachment and alignment. Attachment says, I need this person to feel okay. Alignment says, I am already becoming whole, and what belongs with me will meet me there. That difference changes everything. The moment you stop chasing emotional certainty and start standing in your own clarity, the whole energy begins to shift. Pressure starts to fade. The connection is no longer being fed by fear. It starts breathing in a different way. And yes, that change can be felt. Not always through words, but through energy, presence, and awareness. It forces reality to become clearer. Either the bond grows into something honest, or it reveals exactly where it cannot go. Both outcomes matter. Both outcomes bring freedom. This is often the moment when fear begins losing its grip. The old pattern weakens. The cycle of one person chasing while the other pulls away starts to break. Because when you choose growth, you stop feeding confusion. You stop calling uncertainty love. You stop treating silence like proof of depth. You start wanting something cleaner, clearer, and more real. And that new standard speaks without saying much at all. It simply says, if this is real, it must exist in real life. It must come with honesty, with intention, with accountability. That message can shake the other person more than chasing ever did. Because when you stop bending yourself to keep the bond alive, they are forced to face what they truly feel without leaning on your effort, without your constant presence filling the empty spaces, without your emotional labor holding the whole thing together. And that moment matters more than most people realize. Stay here, because this next part is where self-respect changes the whole story. Suddenly, there is space. Space where your effort used to be. Space where your reassurance used to be. Space where your patience once covered uncertainty. And inside that space, truth begins to rise on its own. The idea of losing you for real may begin to feel more real to them than they ever expected. Not as drama, not as panic, just as an emotional fact they can no longer ignore. But your job is not to sit and wait in that uncertainty. Your job is not to stay hanging between hope and pain, measuring every silence, decoding every delay, or trying to rebuild meaning from tiny pieces. Your task is to stay rooted in self-respect while life reveals what is true. Real love is not something that lives only in private feeling. It is something that can survive clarity, distance, time, and truth. If they come back, let it be because they can meet you honestly, not because they miss your energy while staying the same. And if they do not return, let that truth stand too. Because painful truth is still kinder than hope that keeps making you smaller. You are being prepared for depth, not fantasy, for clarity, not endless guessing, for love that can live in daylight, not only in memory or emotion. As this understanding grows, something else begins to change inside you. Your thoughts of them may still come, but they arrive differently now. There is less panic, less reaching, less inner chaos, more stillness, more awareness, more acceptance. That shift is not cold detachment. It is growth. It is your nervous system learning that it does not have to chase in order to survive connection. And when one person in a deep bond changes at that level, the whole dynamic starts responding. Energy seeks balance. If you stop chasing, something changes. If you stop begging life for answers and start living as if you are already anchored in your worth, the emotional current between you changes direction. Not by force, by truth. by reality adjusting itself to the place you now stand. They may begin to feel your absence in a new way, not as punishment, not as rejection, but as presence without demand. And that can be deeply confronting for someone who got used to your emotional availability always being there in the background, because now they are left alone with their own patterns, their own silence, their own avoidance, their own truth. And in that space, they have to face what they kept running from, the walls they built, the habits they leaned on, the emotional distance they kept justifying, the control they once called safety. Those defenses may have protected them once, but they also limited their ability to experience the kind of connection they truly long for. To move forward, they would have to risk vulnerability. They would have to stop hiding behind confusion, behind distance, behind old pain responses. And that is not a small thing. It takes real courage. The kind of courage many people only find when they feel they are close to losing something they did not fully value until it began to slip away. But your role is not to rescue that process. Your role is not to carry it for them, not to wait forever for it, not to abandon yourself while hoping they change. Your role is to honor yourself so fully that whatever happens next becomes clear without distortion. Whether this path leads to reunion or release, it should no longer break you. It should no longer reduce you. That is one of the clearest signs of healing. You can care deeply and still remain whole. You can feel love and still choose truth. You can hope without leaving yourself behind. There is a huge difference between emotional connection and self-erasure, and you are learning to see that difference more clearly now. So if you are still listening, remember this, because it matters more than you think. Love that costs you your center is not asking for devotion. It is exposing a wound, and wounds are not healed by abandoning yourself harder. They are healed by returning to what is steady, real, and clean inside you. There may still be unfinished meaning here. Not everything unresolved is meant to become permanent loss. But not everything unresolved is meant to become a lifelong bond either. Sometimes it simply means something honest still wants to be spoken. Words that were never said do not disappear. Feelings that were never fully owned do not just vanish. They wait. They gather weight. And sooner or later, they ask for courage. That courage may lead to a conversation. It may lead to closure. It may lead to something new that looks nothing like the old version at all, but whatever it becomes, it will require honesty from both sides, not assumption, not silence filled with hope, not fear dressed up as distance, real honesty. Your fear may ask, can I trust what I already feel without needing proof every day? Their fear may ask, can I open up without falling back into my old defenses? These are not small questions, they are deeply human questions. And sometimes they begin moving quietly under the surface, long before anyone ever says them out loud. You may notice that even the idea of reunion no longer feels frantic. It feels quieter now, more grounded, more realistic, less like chasing a dream and more like understanding a truth that either aligns or does not. That shift changes everything about what you are emotionally available for. True bonds are not meant to trap you in confusion or suffering. They are meant to guide you back to yourself. And if communication opens, let it open naturally. Do not force it. Do not rush to fill silence with made-up meaning. Let actions show intention. Let consistency define truth. Let time expose what is real and what was only intensity without stability. Because intensity can feel powerful and still not be safe. Chemistry can feel electric and still not be compatible with peace. That is why discernment matters now more than longing. And that is why your growth is not a side story here. It is the story. Everything becomes different when you stop asking only whether they feel it too, and start asking whether this can actually live in truth. If fear rises again, let it rise without letting it take the wheel. Fear is often just an old echo trying to protect you from uncertainty. But fear is not always the same as truth. Pay attention instead to what your body tells you. Your body often recognizes reality before your mind can explain it. When something is not right, everything tightens, your chest gets heavy, your thoughts speed up. You feel yourself shrinking, overthinking, performing emotional math just to feel safe. But when something is aligned, even if it is still uncertain, there is more room inside you, more breath, more steadiness, more quiet presence. That difference matters more than fantasy ever will, because the next part of your journey is not asking for desperation. It is asking for discernment, the ability to tell the difference between chemistry and compatibility, between longing and alignment, between intensity and emotional safety that can actually last. There is also a quiet strength that grows when you stop needing reassurance every hour. You stop checking for signs all day. You stop trying to decode every silence. You stop asking other people to confirm what your own deeper awareness already senses. And something in you begins to settle, not because you know the ending, but because you finally know yourself more clearly. That clarity changes everything. You no longer need to defend your feelings to people who do not understand them. You no longer need to lower your standards just to keep emotional access to someone. Real love does not require confusion as proof. It may challenge you, yes. It may transform you, yes. But it does not ask for self-abandonment. If this bond is meant to grow, it will grow in truth. And if it cannot live in truth, then truth itself will eventually free you from what was never meant to continue. That may be hard to hear, but stay with it, because freedom is not always the loss of love. Sometimes freedom is the loss of illusion. So keep moving, keep becoming, keep choosing clarity over confusion. Keep honoring the version of you that rose through this experience, because that version is not an accident. The awakening in you is not random. The awareness growing in you now is not meaningless. If this connection rises into something real, you will meet it from strength, not hunger. And if it dissolves into understanding, you will not be left empty. You will be left wiser, clearer, more rooted in yourself than before. Either way, you return to yourself, and that return changes everything. The deepest lesson may not be whether this person stays or goes. The deepest lesson may be that they activated a truth in you that you can no longer ignore. They showed you what your heart can feel, what your spirit can recognize, and what your soul should never again settle for. That matters. Even if the form changes, even if the ending looks different than what you once imagined. Because some people are not sent only to stay, some are sent to wake you up, to interrupt the old pattern, to expose what still hurts, to reveal what still needs healing, to show you the difference between craving and connection, between fantasy and reality, between being chosen for a moment and being met in a way that is real. And once you see that clearly, you cannot unsee it. You stop begging for almost. You stop romanticizing uncertainty. You stop calling emotional absence mysterious depth. You begin wanting what can stand in the light, what can be spoken clearly, what can show up consistently, what can hold both feeling and truth. That is not asking for too much. That is asking for what is real. And maybe that is the final shift. Not whether they come back, not whether the story restarts, but whether you now know yourself enough to never again call confusion home. If you do, then something powerful has already happened, something lasting. Something that no silence, no distance, and no delay can take from you. And maybe that is why this bond still lingers in your heart. Not to keep you trapped, but to keep you honest. Honest about what you felt. Honest about what it awakened. Honest about what you deserve now. There are connections that leave noise, and there are connections that leave truth. Noise fades, truth stays. It keeps working on you. It keeps shaping you. It keeps asking you to choose yourself more fully each time. So if this person was meant to be part of your path, life will make room for what is real when both people are ready to meet it honestly. And if not, life will still use this experience to build you into someone more awake, more steady, and more clear than before. That is not loss. That is transformation. Do not waste your life waiting at a locked door. But do not insult your heart by pretending nothing meaningful happened either. Hold both truths. Something real may have touched you, and something even more real is now being asked of you. To stand in your worth, to let time reveal character, to let actions speak louder than your hope, to stop pouring meaning into silence and start giving your energy to what gives back in truth. If they return, let them return with honesty. If they speak, let their actions match their words. If they stay distant, let distance tell the truth, without you rewriting it. This is how peace begins. Not by killing your feelings, but by placing them in the hands of clarity. Not by becoming cold, but by becoming grounded. Not by denying love, but by refusing to lose yourself inside it. And if you can do that, then no matter what happens next, you win something deeper than reunion. You win your center back. You win your self-respect back. You win the part of you that no longer confuses longing with destiny. And that is when everything changes. Quietly, deeply, for good.